Hi, this is Ren.
This is Casey.
And this is All Walks of Film. So, 2017 was a wonderful year for film.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of amazing films, and we're going to get to that. But first, we're going to get to what we thought were the worst films of 2017.
And this is a year that's definitely like, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times kind of a year. I mean, not in equal measure. I could easily do a top 25 best movies this year, and they would all be similar caliber of quality. Whereas, like, I have a, bottom 10 for the year. It's not quite the same, but the depths to which we sank. And I gotta put a little spoiler warning. There's gonna be a lot of fanboy on my list of just, no, not my fandom.
Yeah. All right, so this is a top 10 worst of list. Right now, I'm going to say an honorable mention, but didn't get on the list, was a movie that I enjoyed, and I expected what it was, and that is 50 Shades Darker. I enjoyed the hell out of myself watching that movie, so that movie doesn't belong on the list for me.
Exactly. That's exactly how I feel. The 50 Shades movies are never going to qualify for me as some of the worst movies of the year because they're doing exactly what they want to do, and that's being silly, laugh out loud garbage. It's not that the comedy doesn't hit, because it does.
Yeah, it certainly does.
So, it's not that it's a bad comedy, so it's not going to be on my worst list for that reason. And I don't honestly believe that they're trying to be a sexy drama. And if they are, they're doing something much better than that, so it's really not going to be on my list for that reason. So, no, the 50 Shades movies are never going to be on my worst list, I don't think. We'll see next year.
Yeah.
Valentine's Day.
So, my number 10 is Oscar nominated for Best Picture. So that just tells you how my opinions vary, our opinions vary from, the mainstream of everything. But it's Call Me By Your Name. I really wanted to like this movie. I really did. Moonlight was my favorite movie last year. Hands down.
Moonlight was, but it's also one of your all-time favorite movies.
Well, yeah. Moonlight was my favorite movie of 2016. Last year was 2017.
Oh,
sorry.
Yeah. Last movie year.
Yeah, last movie year. And, I try to be an open-minded person when it comes to queer cinema because
a lot of it's really good.
A lot of it is really good. And, even though I'm a heterosexual, I do appreciate different walks of life. And there is an attachment that I have with the gay community because I've always felt like a pariah. So that aspect of it is something that I can relate to, even though the sexual nature is certainly something that I don't really relate to as much.
Well, to be fair, that was not an element of Call Me By Your Name.
I mean, like, how many times were we watching the movie where I just leaned over to you and said, can they just fuck already? Because, like, quite frankly, it would have been a better movie if it had just gone
more interesting.
Yeah, exactly. It would have been a more interesting movie if they had just gone for their eroticism. I was watching the movie, and, like, a lot of it is, like, lounging around and bullshitting and all this kind of stuff. It's, like, one of those, like, wine and dine type movies. Like, I don't know what it is.
It seems like a great makeout movie for, like, it's setting the atmosphere with the music and the pretty colors, but you're not actually supposed to pay any attention to it.
Yeah, and the reason why it's so low on my list is because, like, there were a lot of good moments in the movie.
I don't even think there were a lot. I think there were two.
The Michael Stuhlbarg scene is amazing.
One of the two, yes. That scene was incredible.
And that original song that's nominated is amazing.
Oh, that is good too. And then, of course, the last shot of the film.
The last shot is one of the best shots in the entire year.
Yeah, that is one of the best moments in cinema.
And it's so frustrating because, like, I'm watching this movie going like, dude, when is this movie going to get interesting? When is this movie going to get interesting?
And the last 5 minutes of a 2-hour movie.
Yeah, the last 5 minutes of this 2-hour movie, and then all of a sudden I'm just like, holy shit, I'm into this. Oh, fuck, it's over.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, those good qualities about the movie didn't put it on anywhere close to my list, but there are such huge problems with the movie that I think a lot of people are willing to overlook. The biggest one for me, well, the biggest two for me, I should say, the characters aren't relatable people.
Yeah.
And it feels like a 2-hour cologne ad. It's beautiful men in beautiful places, wearing beautiful things, just sort of lounging around, living the good, wealthy life, you know, reading books and swimming in pools. Great. But I don't know what you're really supposed to get out of that other than just, ooh, pretty. I'd like to live like that. Well, no shit. But I didn't feel anything for either of the characters, and they were too similar to one another. They were, like, on script, they were written to be essentially the same person. So their romance and chemistry, well, I think another reason why it was lacking is because I found out they only had one rehearsal, and that rehearsal had no dialogue and was only them making out.
That's kind of creepy.
Yeah, like, the director had them making out and then left while they were making out and didn't tell them. It's super weird. Also, Shia LaBeouf was originally supposed to be in this movie. Nobody would take this shit seriously if that had happened.
Yeah.
No one would believe that this was an Oscar-worthy movie if that had happened.
And also, to be fair, Timothée Chalamet does actually give a really good performance.
He's giving a really good performance, but the script is not helping him. That's a big problem. He's doing a wonderful job with, like, this rice cracker nothing of, like, a tasteless, formless piece of styrofoam that he just has to gnaw on with, like, really, really great attention, but you can't save it. And then we have to talk about the big problem. That you have all these amazing moments of cinema in a movie with a scene of fruit fucking that was made by a bunch of fruit fuckers.
Alright, you need to elaborate on that a little bit.
So in this movie, where this kid fucks his girlfriend, fucks his adult boyfriend while he's underage, at one point, he fucks a fruit. Now, I was pretty sure it was an apricot, because that's all they talked about in this movie, because the apricot was all the symbolism of how juicy his butt was, and how he was super precocious, and how, you know, this graduate student wants to drink him down in one gulp. So I thought it was an apricot. Everyone keeps saying it's a peach. It's not the point. The point is he rips a pit out and sticks his dick in it. And comes all over it. And his boyfriend walks in and eats it.
No,
we're supposed to...
He doesn't eat... He doesn't eat...
It. No. He takes a big bite out of it. He takes the cum-filled fruit and puts it in his face.
I could have sworn he didn't actually eat it, though.
He totally took a bite out of it.
I thought he was, like, signaling that he was going to.
Okay, but
he didn't.
That's not the worst part of the scene. I mean, come on. There is another thing of the director wanted to cut that scene because he thought it was impossible, so he tried it, and then he was like, oh, no, we should keep it. And then the actor had the same thing where he was like, I don't know if I could even do this on screen. I guess I should try it at home first. And he was like, oh, no, I can do that.
I just want to give a disclaimer. I have not tried it myself, so I don't know.
And I'm not saying that makes the movie bad. But, I mean, I was holding it in really hard for the whole movie, and as soon as the credits were rolling after this really amazing performance that Timothy gave at the end of the movie, I just had to, like, let it all out, man.
Yeah, but the reason why it's so low on my list is the fact that, like, there are elements of the movie that are really interesting, but you still have to look at it as a whole entire movie. And for me, it falls apart when that happens.
Exactly. I agree.
All right. So, my number 9 is Justice League. Now, I'm going to say right now, I actually kind of enjoyed this movie.
Mm-hmm. This is actually the first DCEU movie not to make it on my worst of the year list.
There's something to be said though, because like I felt that I had to put it on the list because it was so bad that it actually climbed into another territory. But unlike 50 Shades Darker, which I think was actually trying to be bad, this movie was actually trying to be good, I swear. But the fact that they changed directors because of an unfortunate tragedy, that's not even the issue. I mean, like, this movie has like no structure.
It has no structure. It's the worst effects we have seen to date.
Yeah,
like,
it's
it
like
was
I
being
watched
transported to like 2004 Sharknado.
Or like 1990s Spawn. Like, yeah, it's like bad.
I actually thought Green Lantern had better effects. I thought Green Lantern CGI suit was more realistic than Cyborg CGI suit.
Yeah, and speaking of Cyborg, that was definitely one of the more interesting aspects of the movie.
That was completely wasted.
Now, I will say, the one thing that everybody noticed in the movie was the digital editing out of Henry Cavill's mustache, which it kind of looked like the annoying orange guy.
Yeah.
It was just...
It's just
so
okay,
bad. And that's the first shot of the fucking movie.
Okay, well, at first I thought that it was actually a really intelligent idea for them to shoot it on a cell phone so you could excuse really shitty footage to hide how bad the effect was. But then you actually had him fully realized in like complete 4K digital restoration, whatever. And it was horrifying. That scene where he's talking to Lois Lane and he's like, "Yes, dear," and he smiles, and I was like, "Oh my god, you're a Stepford wife."
Yeah, but like you go behind the scenes and like they digitally altered his suit because originally he had a black suit and like there was all this stuff. And like quite frankly, I think they should have gone with that and then like changed it later. He also had a beard and long hair originally, which yeah, if you die and you're put into the ground, your hair still grows. And
no, it doesn't. That's actually a myth. What happens is your skin sinks into your body, giving the illusion that your hair is growing longer because you can see more of it.
Okay, then.
The more you know.
But yeah, originally he had a beard. And quite frankly, I think that would have... Well, we don't know if Superman like technically died. Because even though... If you read the actual Batman Doomsday like comics, he gets put into like a long coma when he's in the grave. So then he comes out of it once his exposure to like kryptonite or whatever.
I think you're thinking about this a lot harder than the actual movie creators thought about it.
Yeah. Yeah, they just bring him back from the dead in the movie.
Well, to be fair, I don't know why they even bothered trying to pretend like he was dead for as long as they did. Because in Batman v Superman, they show at the end that he's gonna come back. A week after Batman v Superman had its opening weekend, they released, promo trailer nonsense for Justice League, showing that Superman was in it and he was alive and well. And then you had 2 movies in between, where you tried to talk about, oh, the world misses Superman. When we all know that he's not dead. Why? Why did you even bother?
Well, technically in the movie he was dead and he was brought back.
But we all knew that he was coming back. There was no tension.
No.
Why did you bother?
Yeah, I will say that like one of the best parts of the movie did actually involve Superman, and that was when they were all fighting Superman, and then the Flash like moves, and then like he turns his eyes, and then the look on
Miller's face
is
that
priceless.
Was all Joss Whedon. I swear, that was a Whedon moment. And
the movie would have been a lot better if it was pretty much just Joss Whedon moments. I know that there are people who are like, no, make the Snyder cut. And then there are other people who are like, no, make the Whedon
Snyder
cut.
The Snyder shit is garbage. He's proved over the course of 4 movies that it's garbage. And Whedon's not much better, but he's definitely better.
Yeah, I'd much rather watch
I'd rather watch The Avengers before I'd rather watch any DCEU film.
I don't know. This one is sort of so bad that I could actually sit through it again.
Well,
just to laugh at it.
It's at least trying to sexually appeal to everybody. To be fair, yes, there are 7, count that 7 upskirt shots for Wonder Woman, who I personally don't really find attractive anyway. But to counter that, you have 5 super schlongs in your face all movie, just like teabagging you on the screen. Just, Batman pitching a tent, 5-inch fucking tent. And then you also have Aquaman doing his little Carl's Jr. commercial where he salters out into the rain and flips his hair back and finishes his bottle of whiskey and wades half naked into the lake. Like, there's something there for everyone, unless you really don't like Gal Gadot like I do, in which case you're just shit out of luck.
I mean, we kind of got Amber Heard, for a couple minutes.
Yeah, not really. Oh, no. If you don't like Gal Gadot, there's a few seconds of Blackpink in the background of the Flash's house, along with Rick and Morty. So there you go. Pleases everybody.
Yeah, and Amy Adams.
Whether you like men, women, or cartoons, there you go.
Yeah. So yeah, it's my number 9. There are a lot worse movies this year.
I can't help it. I had too much fun to actually put it on my worst list, even though it's the worst made. It is the worst made DCEU film.
It's so bad, but there's so much enjoyment watching it, and just I literally can't think of the movie without laughing.
I was laughing laughing too hard.
Yeah. Oh my god. But
that means you enjoyed it. Can you actually say it's one of the worst movies of the year if you legitimately enjoyed it?
I had to put it on just for technical purposes.
That's true, it looked like ass.
Yeah,
more so than usual.
And yeah, technically Call Me by Your Name is better than Justice League.
That's why it's higher on the list.
But my god. Anyways, my number 8, The Book of Henry, a movie that was so bad that it got Colin Trevorrow taken off of Star Wars Episode 9.
God.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed Jurassic World, and Safety Not Guaranteed was a pretty fun movie, but The Book of Henry. Why did this not get a Razzie nomination for script?
It should have swept up all the Razzies, but they had to, mother, Jennifer Lawrence. Seriously?
Yeah, seriously, when you have The Book of Henry.
Dude, Naomi Watts deserves a Razzie before Jennifer Lawrence. Or Sarah Silverman. Oh, Sarah Silverman could have taken that home proudly for that performance. Dear God.
Yeah, and Miss Feminist Sarah Silverman playing a role like that? What the fuck happened? Did she need the money that bad?
Probably, but yeah.
Maybe to pay for their kids' bills and stuff like that, medical bills.
But again, I had too much fun watching that movie, but that was literally probably one of the dumbest scripts I've ever seen in my life. Folding Ideas has a brilliant video about it. Seriously, just watch his 40-minute video. It's incredible.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the movie, watch that. But I seriously encourage you to watch the movie. Even though it's on my worst list, watch the movie, then watch that. You have to fully take in how horrible this movie is. It's the most ridiculous plot ever. The fact that this kid knows everything, even after he dies, is insane. He's
also just a mega dick to everyone, because of course he is.
Yeah, he mansplains
You can't be intelligent and be nice.
Yeah. And I don't really like this word, but he really mansplains to his mom like all the time. And it's like, if you ever want like an idea of like what mansplaining is, like outside of, you know, feminists, watch this movie and you'll totally get it.
I will say, I did think Naomi Watts could have taken home a Razzie for that whole speech she gave about why she doesn't need a husband because she has her son. Ew!
And then let's not forget the scene.
Sarah Silverman makeout sesh.
Yeah. And then like, so for those of you not in the know of like what this movie is, like seriously check this movie out. It's so ridiculous that it's worth watching. So this kid dies of cancer, but then he has this whole elaborate plan on why his mom should forge documents to get custody over his over her neighbor's stepdaughter, while killing the stepdad. Yeah,
that's the more important element.
Yeah.
Of the two is, hey mom, commit a murder. Thanks, I'm dead now. Movie.
and there's a lot more to it, but I'm gonna move on. Next up, we have Kong Skull Island at number 7.
That one made my list too.
All right, so I love King Kong. I love kaiju movies. All I wanted was a dumb kaiju movie. And
starring King Kong.
Yeah, exactly. Starring King Kong. But no, he's not King Kong in this movie. He doesn't have any of the emotive qualities of King Kong. King Kong is a very emotive character. He's not Godzilla, which apparently Jordan Vogt-Roberts forgot when he made this movie. Also, all of the like on the number references to like the 70s, like, oh, hey, remember this music? Hey, remember Vietnam and all this kind of stuff? It was so just right on the mark that it just frustrated me. Also,
I also get really annoyed when people are like, oh yeah, we reference the Vietnam War because Vietnam War imagery looks cool, when it's like, the Vietnam War is one of the most fucked up things that ever happened in United States history. And it's pretty fucking recent.
Yeah.
You asshat.
Yeah. This movie didn't really have any love. It didn't show any love for King Kong, except for the one scene that I will argue is actually pretty cool. The propeller scene where he spins around the propeller and like acts like Kratos from God of War. That was pretty cool when he fights off the mother skullcrawler and like rips open.
But the movie is beat for beat a shittier remake of Godzilla 14.
Yeah.
It's the same movie, but with more fur and less buildings.
Yeah, and I forget what what's her name? The
Brie
actress
Larson, who's completely wasted.
Right? Yeah, you know, King. What's the main factor of King Kong? It's King Kong and a blonde. How hard is that to get? Well, this movie decided not to do that.
There was a blonde there, and there was a giant ape there. That's close enough. No, it's not. That is not close enough.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I will say about this movie that was really good was, you know, I thought that the promotional art for this movie was pretty amazing. I thought some of the imagery worked, and that water buffalo...
The cannibal Holocaust scene was good. The water buffalo was good.
Yeah,
so was good. But even if you put together all the, like, actually good moments in this movie, you'd probably have a solid 2.5 minutes worth of footage.
Yeah, and there's a whole movie, you know, like with some of the other stuff that I've talked about, there's a whole other movie around this. You can't just pick and choose good moments in a bad movie and then argue that it is a good movie.
But also the other thing is, like, there is turn your brain off stupid, dumb fun. Clearly, we've been talking about it. But Kong Skull Island wasn't fun. Mostly because it was too repetitive to be entertaining.
And I will say the John C. Reilly stuff, when he was actually in the movie, was fun. I liked him in the movie. I didn't really like anybody else. And the shocking thing was, I really like Toby Kebbell. And he was terrible in this movie.
To be fair, I attribute a lot of that to bad direction and not utilizing his talents in post. Because I do think a lot of the shitty effects of the movie did actually tamper with his performance.
Oh, I completely agree with you on that one. Because, yeah, he and...
he knows too much about what the fuck he's doing to be solely responsible for this piece of crap.
What's the... he and Terry Notary did a lot of performance acting with...
and teaching. They've done teaching and directing for Ape Motion Capture.
And hopefully, once we actually get to the King Kong Godzilla versus movie, we actually get a lot better performance with the motion capture actors that can do the work. If you watch the Planet of the Apes trilogy, you know they can do the work. So it's not them, it's the director. It's the direction that they're given.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my number 7. Next up, my number 6, Wind River.
Oh, that one is higher up on my list.
All right, moving up. I have at my number 5, Suburbicon.
Really? Okay. Let's talk about this.
All right, so this movie is directed by George Clooney. Quite frankly, I have appreciated several films that he's made. I didn't see the World War II one where they were like capturing art from the Nazis or whatever.
Oh, that was George Clooney? I wanted to see that. The one with the Klimt paintings?
Yeah, I heard it wasn't that great, but yeah. And he also, I think, did Leatherheads, but he did Good Night and Good Luck and Syriana, which both I thought were really good films.
Mm-hmm.
And then he did this film, which was taking a script from the Coen brothers that they wrote in the 80s and
left it there.
Yeah, it seems like they didn't have anything to do with it. So the idea of the movie is really interesting. It's essentially, here's this like really messed up crime drama that we're focusing on, but nobody else is. And everyone else is focusing on, look at these horrible black people in our neighborhood.
But that's the point.
That is the point. I get it. It's so ham-fisted into the movie, it's an interesting idea. Quite frankly, I didn't feel that the performances really got me. And like this movie had an all-star cast. Like I didn't see Matt Damon really giving a good performance in this film. There's another performance that will be in my top 10. My top 15 that we'll talk about later. But, he wasn't really delivering. Julianne Moore wasn't really delivering. Probably the best scene in the movie had Oscar Isaac in it, but like he was gone before I could even appreciate his character that much. This movie was kind of a mess, and
it also wasn't original enough. It was all, maybe it was when they wrote it in the 80s, but making it now in 2017, we've seen this environment, we've seen this story, we've seen this, modern spin on the 50s storyline. In fact, we actually got that much better with another movie this year. So, yeah, in just about a month and a half, Suburbicon was entirely obsolete. But, I didn't think it was terrible. I actually fairly enjoyed sitting there watching the movie, even though I would never rewatch it for any reason. I just thought it was meh.
All right, so my number 4 is one that got onto a ton of top 10 lists. In fact, people were complaining.
That one is higher on my list.
Okay. All right, so my number 3 is Ghost in the Shell.
That one's... Yeah, that's my number 3 as well. We might as well get into it.
All right, so this movie had one major problem. I did about 4 videos. No, like 4 or 5. Like, we really dug into this movie because, like,
the problem with this movie is that it's fucking racist.
Yeah, and it's not just the whitewashing, which everybody notes about the movie, that's the racist part, though that is a major part of the movie, which is why we made a video literally called, yeah, it's whitewashing.
Because it is.
But worse.
But one of the biggest problems about Ghost in the Shell is that it's a movie that takes place in Japan, where you have almost no Japanese people in the movie, in the foreground, middle ground, or background, and the ones who do exist are entirely, except for Beat Takashi. He's the only, except for Beat Takashi and the really wonderful actress who plays Miri Killian's mother. Besides those two, every single Japanese character is, without exception, evil, a gangster, a robot, a prostitute, or a piece of set decoration to be murdered, or some combination of those 5 things. You can't do that. I mean, you can, obviously. It happened, it was made, and it was put out, but fuck you. You can't, you can't defend that as somehow not being racist, to go to, have a movie set in a country and take the people of that country and say that they're all evil, worthless, and murder them all. Or, essentially just have them pushed off to the side because they're not worth it.
Yeah, and then we thought that, okay, they kind of learned from the backlash to, not name the character Motoko Kusanagi and, do something
have
different.
Have her be white.
Yeah, and then we find out at the end,
no, she's
spoiler
still a
alert.
Japanese woman.
Yeah.
She's 100% a Japanese woman in a white woman's body. So when Scarlett Johansson came out and said, "Oh, I would never presume to take a part away from somebody of a different ethnicity. I'm only playing a Japanese woman in this movie." But pushing all of that aside, it's a shitty movie. It's yet another really crappy, subpar, watered down remake of Blade Runner. It looks just like Blade Runner, but it's not nearly as interesting. It's exactly like RoboCop, but not nearly as interesting. It's exactly like literally every single sci-fi movie you've ever seen. It brings nothing new to the table. It has very, very little interesting philosophically going on. They almost had something interesting with the "I give my consent," but that turned out to be pointless because your consent didn't matter thing, but they didn't take it anywhere.
Yeah.
And it pissed off and offended a lot of people, especially Asian Americans.
Yeah, because, and I love that, I mean, I don't love, but, I thought it was really interesting that, so many people were like, "Oh, well, the Japanese people don't have a problem with it," and it's of course the Japanese people don't have a problem with it, because, 80 to 90% of their entertainment has only Asians in it. Whereas Asian Americans are lucky if they have one that comes out in an entire year.
But it was also really unfair to try to say, the entire population of Japan was A-okay with it, as if they're not a collection of individuals with their own individual ideas.
Well, yeah, and everybody was, calling back to, one video by, what is it, Japanese Man Yuta or something like that.
Where he talked to, literally 10 random people.
Yeah.
I mean, even Kotaku took, random screen grabs from different comments on a Reddit post from Japan. I think they put 30 comments, and it was sort of a mix of different opinions,
Yeah.
But, I mean, at the end of the day, even if the racist bullshit just doesn't bother you, there's still no reason to see this movie. It's crap. It doesn't look good. It's not interesting.
I will say something
Johansson
to
gives
the
a
production design.
The
production design did have some interesting aspects that, there were elements.
Work is good.
Yeah.
But Scarlett Johansson going directly through that glass window is just
well, yeah, it's so funny because, in the original film, she's actually propelling herself, and then she does the flip, and then she swings in. Whereas in this movie, if you look behind the scenes, they're trying to do that, but she doesn't propel herself, and
she just jumps through a window.
Yeah.
Going head first downwards in a vertical line, head first into the ground, but she somehow manages to just jump through the window like she's Jumpman Mario. That's not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. More importantly, the movie just sucks ass.
Well, yeah, and if you're just watching it for a dumb action movie, it doesn't even deliver on the dumb action parts because, like, none of the action is, like, visually compelling.
10 movies that came out this year that were better dumb action films than this.
Yeah, fucking watch John Wick.
Watch John Wick 2, watch Atomic Blonde. I mean, like, watch Bad Batch, watch War for the Planet of the... I mean, I could literally just sit here and count 10 movies that would be better and more entertaining.
I wouldn't call War for the Planet it's dumb, but...
But action. If all you're looking for is, like, interesting sci-fi action. Plus, this year we had a million TV shows that could deliver that, too. There was no reason for Ghost in the Shell to be made.
Yeah.
No one wanted it. No one watched it. No one liked it.
All right, so my number 2 is... your number 1, so we'll save it to another moment. All right, so films that are in our honorable, or in this case, dishonorable mentions that I have on my list are Mudbound and Baby Driver.
Mudbound? Mudbound was a hot mess, but there were some good moments in that movie.
There were some good moments, which is why it's not on my list. I think the overall film just didn't work for me, and that's why
it needed a lot more finesse. I definitely agree with that.
It did. And Baby Driver, it didn't get on my list, but it really pissed me off. All right, so my number 1 worst movie of 2017 is the anime Netflix adaptation of Death Note.
To nobody's surprise.
So, we made 2 videos about this. You can actually listen to our commentary over the entire fucking movie. We only watched it once, but good God, we had to do that just to get through it. This movie was an absolute mess. And didn't even feel like a fucking movie. It felt like a test run for what a crappy movie would be.
It literally did not feel like a completed film that was supposed to be published and put out, as is.
Issue number 1, you took a 36/37, I can't remember how many episodes, but like you took a whole series of films and tried to condense it into one film.
Especially considering the series takes place over many years.
Yeah, so, you know, they tried to adapt that. They also, like, whitewashed and all that kind of stuff. But, like, quite frankly, the whitewashing isn't that big a deal for me because, like, Death Note isn't a specifically Japanese story. So I could understand adapting it and putting it in the United States.
But not with the same characters.
Exactly. You know, have it in the same universe, have, like, the other stuff happen before and just make it another Death Note. Seems that simple. Apparently not. You know, so you have the character of Light, you have the character of L. They don't really change much about that, but they certainly change almost everything having to do with their personality. First of all, Light is an idiot. And kind of an idiot in the movie, except at the end where apparently he's brilliant or whatever, which is really dumb.
L is also an idiot.
Oh my god.
That's most of the problem with the movie is everyone is stupid as driveway gravel.
Yeah, and, you know, he did a fine performance in Get Out, but, like, good God, in this movie, like, he's a fucking spaz.
Well, he didn't write that shit.
Well, yeah, you know, let's blame it on Adam Wingard, who, you know, I did say that, like, oh, I'm looking forward to Kong versus Godzilla, but unlike Colin Trevorrow, apparently he's still going to be directing that movie.
Even though Death Note is significantly worse than Book of Henry.
Yeah.
I mean, just objectively.
Oh my god, you know, so, like, I don't understand why Netflix decided to produce this movie.
Or put it out for the masses. They've canceled shit before.
Yeah, honestly, I'm glad that it wasn't a series because, like, that would have been, like, even worse. So, you know, props for that, but that's pretty much it. You know, the special effects, there were a lot of decent moments with the special effects. Like, you know, the gore effects were pretty decent, and
the Ferris wheel scene was actually really well done.
Yeah, it was.
If I could say one singular positive thing about the entire film, the Ferris wheel actually looked good.
Yeah, the logistics of it are stupid, but...
Oh yeah, everything about the way it was written into the story did not need to happen.
What, like, the
person...
Death Note falls from... What was it? The Death Note falls from his hand and, like, you know, like, manages to, like, burn up. Like, you know, it's just so stupid.
To be fair, there was at least one person sitting in front of their computer rendering that Ferris wheel and the accident and the toppling over who did their job very, very well.
Yeah, and, you know, props for all the moments that Willem Dafoe was in, because, like, quite frankly, like, he didn't have control of the script, and, you know, his performance as Ryuk was actually pretty decent. He looked like ass... But, yeah.
I can't even agree with you on that one.
Okay, well, we'll get into that later. Alright, so that's my number one.
Alright. So, at least I only had a top 10. It wasn't more than that, even though I had a couple honorable mentions. But, my number 10 was Baby Driver. Which, oh my god, Baby Driver, so amazing. I legitimately hated all but 2 moments of that movie. Like, seething hatred for everything happening. I hated Baby. Wearing headphones is not that fucking interesting. Nobody cares what you're listening to, or how you listen to it, or that you wear shades, and you listen to your earbuds. Nobody cares. Everyone does that. It doesn't make you interesting or mysterious at all. His love interest had no personality. In fact, nobody in this movie had any personality of which to speak. Every element of the movie was incredibly derivative. And great directors can be incredibly derivative, and it's fine. Derivative is not inherently bad, but it is when you do nothing with it and are just like, oh, remember that? Remember this better movie? It's like, yes, I saw that movie. I saw that one too. I don't need your shitty recap of it. I'm sorry. And no, the collected soundtrack was not worth a 10-year wait while you clearly did not develop your script. To be fair, he developed a lot of storyboarding to, like, you know, edit it with the sound and the cuts with the action, but honestly, even the car chases didn't do a lot for me. I've seen significantly better car chases. In fact, I was more emotionally invested in the car chase in Midnight Special. That was significantly lower budget and lower quality, but was a lot more interesting to watch than this piece of crap. The only thing about this movie, at all, was Kevin Spacey gets run over a few times, and it's very graphic, and it's really satisfying. Yes, because it's Kevin Spacey, but even in the context of the movie, he's such a dipshit that it's actually kind of awesome. You're not supposed to feel that way at all. You're supposed to feel sad, because Kevin Spacey is heroically helping this young underage boy helping heroically this young underage boy that he's coerced into working for him. Gee, that doesn't sound familiar. Okay.
Was he underage?
He looks underage enough. And then he gets run over. And then he gets run over again and again. And it's wonderfully satisfying. So I do appreciate those 2 moments. But there was nothing else worth it in this movie. My number 9 pick is Bland Runner.
I actually kind of like this movie.
Okay. This movie definitely had an uphill battle. Denis Villeneuve, fucking hate him. Talked about him a million times. I despise him as a director. Partly because he has no respect for women, but also partly because he has no idea what the fuck he wants to do on any given project. But the other thing is, I obviously adore Blade Runner. And it's not the idea of doing a sequel many, many years later to a movie that I love is not inherently a bad idea. But it's really hard to do with Blade Runner because since Blade Runner has come out, it's dominated the sci-fi genre. Every sci-fi, futuristic, dystopian future is Blade Runner. Everything takes place in the world of Blade Runner. It's all dark, misty skylines with big squished-in cities with giant light-up advertisements that are beautiful to look at but super annoying with the flying cars and, you know, the corrupt cops. It's all Blade Runner. And it's boring at this point.
And I will say, I can agree with you on that part. And, the anime film Metropolis that was based on Osamu Tezuka's work and not the wonderful 1927 film, though there are similar elements.
Well, to be fair, the Metropolis anime has more to do with the original Metropolis film than the Metropolis manga ever did. But also the Metropolis anime is more of just a recapped adaptation of half of Osamu Tezuka's work.
Yeah, but that is an example of the future that doesn't look like Blade Runner.
Too much.
Right.
Even though some elements look like Blade Runner, nothing about it tonally feels like Blade Runner. Even though there is the robots versus human uprising thing with the giant tall buildings and the flying cars and the corrupt cops, it still is doing enough different that it's not just retreading old ground. So first of all, you had that problem of it's been done to death too many times before. But second of all, it's been too many years. You have to do it better than Blade Runner. Cinema has gone so far since Blade Runner came out. You have so much more technology and capability. It has to be better. It does. Especially in the visual department. And no, it doesn't. Nothing compares to Blade Runner. Not the visuals, not the philosophy, not the performance, not the story. Nothing comes close to the original Blade Runner, and it's too difficult to take for that long. It's boring, it's ugly to look at, because most of the movie, they had really good miniature models. They had really good practical effects, and they had really awesome compositing for a lot of their shots. They had some really interesting ideas for a handful of scenes that had really interesting physics and could only work in that world, like the scene where the copper is flying over the landfill with all these people there, and they have this sort of electric kite that they use to hook onto his car and electrocute him and bring him down that way, to sort of hunt him down, was a really good scene. But then you have to waste most of the movie with this negative space. It's just lone silhouette with empty expanse of singular color. It's all orange and white and black and gray. The city doesn't look nearly as interesting or developed or full somehow. The city just always feels empty, except for in his apartment. There's this distinct lack of diversity that was there in the original. You don't have enough of, people with different cultures and different languages and looking different, like you would get in a giant metropolitan city, like they did in the original Blade Runner. You can do that better now. Why wouldn't you do that? There were a couple elements, but like I said, you're not doing it nearly as well.
Yeah, and, just speaking in a small argument to you, I did think that the Joy romance scene was really compelling.
I mean, I think that the scene where she is melding in and out of these two different people was quite possibly the most philosophically interesting moment in the entire movie. But the problem is you introduce that, you have really good effects, you have really good acting, you have a really interesting idea that's new, that hasn't been explored that much in sci-fi, and then you immediately dropped it and went nowhere with it. Which was pretty much the entire movie. It was picking up these kernels of something interesting and dropping it to do the same old bullshit. Or to try to do this twist of, oh, you know how you thought that this guy was the important guy? He was the Neo of the movie? No, he's not! It's a woman who's only in 2 scenes in this movie. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for wasting our fucking time. Why?
And I will say that twist was done in Terminator 3 as well.
Why is anyone taking notes from Terminator 3? Oh, and also, you completely destroyed any air of mystery about Deckard being a replicant. Thanks. Much appreciated. You've retroactively made the original Blade Runner worse. I mean, to be fair, there are a million cuts to the original Blade Runner. Which one are you making worse? Fair enough. Okay. Oh, and you completely wasted Edward James Olmos in your movie. Thanks, movie.
That was really sad. I was really excited about the movie because I was like, oh, Edward James Olmos is actually in it. Maybe he'll get a bigger part. He's just in a retirement home. Sad face.
Nobody wanted to see that. I definitely didn't want to see that. That was fucking depressing.
Yeah, he was fucking Odama just a little while ago.
It's like, oh great, he has a colostomy bag. That's how he ended up. Wonderful. Thanks for ruining that. Oh, and the action wasn't nearly as good as the original, too. So no. It just failed on every level. My number 8 was Kong Skull Island, as discussed. My number 7, it's the beginning of the elitist piss-off. My number 7 pick is The Beguiled, which you didn't see. So I'm kind of on my own with this one. To start off with, I don't like Sofia Coppola. I like The Virgin Suicides, which I largely
Virgin Suicides is amazing. And
it is, but I also largely attribute that to not really being her project. It was her first film. She had a lot of help, especially from, Daddy Coppola.
Yeah, and is now actually on the Criterion Collection.
Yeah, as well it deserves to be. The Virgin Suicides, for whatever reason, however it got made, is a very, very good film, and I do really love it. And I dislike her entire rest of her filmography. There's only, I think, one feature film of hers I haven't seen. I've seen everything else, and I don't like any of it.
Somewhere, or whatever.
Yeah, it's called something like that. I don't know, because I didn't see it, but...
Oh, you saw Lost in Translation?
I've seen Lost in Translation.
Okay.
I don't like it. I don't hate it, but I don't like it. I don't think it's that great.
I hate it.
I think there's... I think it's largely misinformed about what it's trying to accomplish, but I don't hate it the way I hate The Bling Ring or Marie Antoinette. So, or more importantly, The Beguiled. The Beguiled was selling itself as a revenge drama about a bunch of women getting even with a man by chopping off his dick. Spoiler alert, they don't chop off his dick. It's not that interesting. It takes place in the South, and you have your first offense. Oh, well, slavery and the mistreatment of black people was too uncomfortable for us to work into the movie, so we just didn't have black people in the movie. Fuck you, Best Director from Cannes. Fuck you for that. Then you have all these women, and there's this hot, Colin Farrell. I mean, to be fair, who doesn't want to do Colin Farrell? Okay, fair enough. Lost Colin
Maybe
Farrell
not in The
is
Lobster. Or Killing of a Sacred Deer. Okay.
I mean, he's still Colin Farrell. And the beard is nice. I don't know. He pulls off his shirt to show how hairy his chest is in the Killing of a Sacred Deer, and I was just kind of like, So as established, Colin Farrell was not a bad piece of man candy to put in your movie. Because, does it sound like I'm objectifying him? That's because that's his purpose in the movie. All these women see this lost damsel in the woods, Colin Farrell, and bring him into their home, and they don't trust him, and all these women want to get with him, primarily, 3 of them. It's Nicole Kidman and Kirsten Dunst and Elle Fanning. And, of course, the only one he wants to fuck is the youngest one, who's underage. So, after lots and lots and lots of hemming and hawing and nothing happening, and just... It's not character development, and it's not building tension, and it's not creating an atmosphere. And unlike what a lot of people say it's definitely not conveying the female gaze very well. Because there's a scene where Nicole Kidman is taking care of Colin Farrell and giving him a sponge bath, and she sort of becomes a little too flushed, as it were, to finish. But the way that it's shot and edited doesn't actually portray any sense of sensuality. So I don't think it works in that respect. But eventually, after lots and lots of hemming and hawing, Colin Farrell tries to fuck Elle Fanning, and everybody loses their shit. He kind of sort of rapes Kirsten Dunst, and she's kind of sort of into it, which is all sorts of problematic. And they chop off his leg, and eventually they kill him. And that's the movie. There's not enough character or tension or really anything interesting at play. It's definitely not the best story about a woman poisoning a man with poisonous mushrooms that came out this year. I don't think
which one?
Yeah, exactly. I don't even think that it's actually in the top 3 movies like that. Period piece of a woman poisoning a man with poisonous mushrooms. Not even the top 3 this year, if you want to be that specific. The only thing is the costuming is very good, for sure. But even for me, the costume porn doesn't do it for me. It's just empty and vacuous, and I'm waiting the entire movie for the movie to get started, and once it gets started, it's over. Like the Bling Ring. I had that same problem with it. It's just, it's tedious. It's very tedious. And kind of a waste of a lot of really good talent. But then moving on from that to my number 6, which I can't believe you actually didn't mention at all, Wind River. One of the more offensive movies that came out this year. It's by the same guy who did Sicario, and what's the other film he did? Oh, Hell or High Water, which I did really like. Mostly
Wind River was my number 6, but I decided to wait.
Oh, I see. Okay. So it's by the same guy who did Sicario and Hell or High Water, which Hell or High Water was actually really good because it didn't have women in it. And as Wind River and Sicario prove, he just cannot write women as capable characters. It's just literally impossible for him. He can't comprehend that women are human beings, like men. It's like, oh, you have to have the beautiful blonde woman who's in a position of authority, who has to have a lot of training and prove that she can qualify to be there, who has no idea what the fuck she's doing at any given time, or how to dress for the weather, or how to take care of herself, or how to do her job. Just like Sicario. But more importantly, Wind River is victimizing Native American women for the sake of trying to be woke. And it blows. It's really offensive.
Yeah, it also has the problem of making a one-dimensional rapist, which I think we need to get to a period where we stop doing that, because the issue that I have with this, and I know so many films try to do this, but if guys can't see themselves as these people, they're distancing themselves from that. And there are
It's
people...
the same thing for victims, too, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because, let's face it, most people who are victims of this horrible act know the perpetrator. That is something that is known. There are small instances where that's not the case. But when it comes to film and other media, usually it's the stranger danger situation.
Right, and stranger danger, as Penn and Teller have said, is bullshit. But the big problem for victims of rape with having this media portrayal of the one-dimensional rapist is it makes it really difficult for victims of rape to recognize that they have been raped. And that sounds really condescending, but the reason why that is because when it is somebody that you know, and it's possibly somebody that you love, somebody that you're related to, somebody that you trust, somebody who's your friend, somebody that you're dating, and you're raped, it can become a situation where you do get confused because of your relationship with them. Where you're like, well, they're not like this kind of person. We love each other, we had a great relationship, but then this horrible thing happened. And then they try to talk themselves into a place where, no, I wasn't raped by this person I trust because we have a relationship and I trust them and they take care of me. When you have this, one-dimensional rapist, it makes that situation a lot more difficult. And I'm not trying to make this sound like people don't understand what's happening to them, but sex in any situation is emotionally confusing. Rape is also very emotionally confusing, and it's even difficult to define in a lot of cases. And when you have emotional and physical trauma, you're in a very altered state of mind to see your own situation clearly. I'm not trying to talk down to anybody, but it is problematic when you look at movies and you're like, no, because that's what rape is like. And that's not true. And of course, that's not what every rape is like, obviously, but there is a problem in media where we don't see a spectrum of what it's like. There's also a big problem in this movie with the way the rape scene is handled. It's very well performed, but it comes in the movie at the exact wrong time, where the good guy coppers are coming into this hideout with the evil one-dimensional rapist, and, shit's about to go down, and we all know that this is going to get ugly. So the movie stops right before there's a big showdown and plays the scene of this woman who died before the movie started being raped.
Well,
very graphically.
And also the movie tries to act like her heroic moment is the fact that she was able to run a certain distance before collapsing and dying because of the cold.
Yeah. Oh, isn't it so heroic that she died alone and afraid and brutalized? Isn't that so heroic? Not that they developed her as a character in any way. By the way, she's literally just a prop in the movie for good white savior boy to come along and you know, redeem her honor and get the rape revenge for her. But the movie has to make it clear before anything happens that, oh, this guy is definitely the rapist. It's definitely him. He's definitely the bad guy. Don't you want the copper to kill him or torture him or do something bad? And the reason why the movie has to put that scene in that spot is because otherwise it doesn't make any sense because there's no proof. Well, there's no proof and there's very little rationalization for why he would behave that way. So it's just a moment to take the audience aside and be like, okay, just so you don't get concerned later, he's the good guy doing the right thing, even though everything he's doing is completely wrong and unjustifiable.
And I was really excited about seeing this film because it was written and directed by the same person who wrote Hell or High Water, which is a film that was in my top 10 last year. It was...
But it's only about two heterosexual white guys. And I'm not saying this about all writers, because I think most writers are not in this block, but he just clearly seems to be the kind of person who can only write white heterosexual men.
To be fair, there was that one amazing moment in the car with one of the guys talking about like class issues and stuff like that. That I was watching the movie.
I wouldn't call that moment amazing. I would call it more enlightened than the rest of the film. But it's really hard to look at that scene and compare it to the scene of her mother brutalizing herself, cutting her wrists, and police officers and her husband doing nothing about it. And the reason why I say this movie is victimizing Native Americans is because the entire purpose of having this woman's mother cutting her wrists was to make a point of, at Elizabeth Olsen in the movie, the woman, oh, see, don't you feel bad for trying to tell us what we should do? Look at the pain she's going through. You didn't know what you were talking about. Nobody does anything to help her or to try to, alleviate her pain or to take care of her, to get her medical attention or mental attention. She could literally bleed out right then and there and nobody does anything about it. And it's also then the men can look around at Elizabeth Olsen and see, like, see, you should have trusted us. We know what we're talking about while we leave her to do that. And it was a whole movie of it. And then at the end of the movie, they try to give this little blurb of Native American women go missing every year. Okay, well, first of all, that's not what your movie was about. Your movie wasn't about anybody going missing. Your movie was about a woman who was found dead, alone, frozen in the snow, raped, and beaten. That's not missing. But also, you did not do anything to try to talk about the reason why that is, or why people don't care, or the divide between Americans and the rest of the world, and you didn't do anything like that. So no, fuck you, Wind River. That was one of the most offensive things I saw all fucking year, and everyone I know who saw it loved it, because it was a rape revenge film, which I like. I do really like a lot of rape revenge films, but this was exactly every reason why other rape revenge films are good, because they're not doing anything like it. So, on a slightly lighter tone, my number 5 pick is The Disaster Artist. Was that on your list anywhere?
No, it wasn't on my list. It wasn't even an honorable mention. It's just like, it just was.
Okay, for me, the reason why I had to put The Disaster Artist on, well, there are a handful of reasons. That was such a hard movie to do, because the way it ended up being pulled off, I feel like if you've seen The Room more than once, and you're actually like a fan of The Room in any capacity, the movie has nothing for you.
Yeah,
and
it's
if
like
you haven't seen The Room, I don't understand what you would possibly get out of the movie, because the story and the characters don't stand on their own without The Room. But if you've seen The Room at any kind of gathering, or you've talked about it to anybody, you've already made all these jokes. And you've probably made them better than they were made in this movie, so what's the point? It's not telling you new information. And if you've read the Disaster Artist's book, then you know most of this shit is either, most of the stuff in it is either missing or completely misconstrued. And on top of that, James Franco's vanity this is essentially his Earth Girls Are Easy. This is just such a vanity project for him, where he did not put in enough effort to really do a good imitation of Tommy Wiseau, or to really get his character or his personality. Greg Sestero was also really flatlined, and I do think probably a lot of it did come from, I bet a lot of this had to be approved by Tommy, so it all had to be very squeaky clean on the outside, which is going to be an issue, because Greg Sestero did not write the Disaster Artist in a way to make him or Tommy look good. The movie did not talk enough about the hardships that they face. It didn't actually portray their characters correctly. It missed most of the really interesting stories behind the scenes that took place on the set that were, like, really crazy. And then the ending where it's just, oh, well, Tommy didn't make the masterpiece that he wanted, but he immediately realized when he heard people laugh that that was the gift he could give to the world, and he was content with that. It's just such garbage. No.
Yeah, I mean,
that did not work.
That's one of those things that, like, that came later, but the movie tries to present it as it came within, like, 5 minutes.
Yeah, it doesn't work. And the movie just, the story is too bland to hold up on its own, because it's just, oh, these two guys are friends. They go to LA. They try to make things work. And then there's a little stumbling block, and they have a minor falling out. But then the movie gets made, and it brings them back together.
Yeah,
That's not an interesting story.
Yeah, and the whole movie is a failed attempt to make an Ed Wood-style movie.
Very failed.
Yeah, and what I would say, even though it didn't belong on my list or anything like that, but I would tell you, watch Ed Wood instead. And read The Disaster Artist and watch The Room.
Or listen to The Disaster Artist on audiobook, read by Greg Sestero himself, and then you can get Tommy Wiseau's phone number and call his voicemail all the time. It's awesome.
It's so fun because he does actually change it a lot.
Yeah, he does. It's really funny. And you're not bothering him. It's not his personal cell phone. It's an answering machine. And then, of course, I do have to bring up the way he behaved at the Golden Globes. Yes, of course, there's all the stuff about James Franco's, on set and his professional mannerisms that we all knew about for years, but the fact that he brought Tommy Wiseau on stage with him and then wouldn't let him speak, pushed him away from the mic, and then just was like, no, this is my microphone. That wasn't funny. That was sad. You're literally only getting your Oscar nomination because of him. But also just
he didn't get an Oscar nomination.
Or not Oscar, sorry, Golden Globe. You're only getting your Golden Globe because of him. And he, if you've read The Disaster Artist, he has had a very, very difficult life, and he is a very troubled person. Give him a second to say what he wanted to say. Let him have a moment. Let him have a little piece of your glory hog. Come on.
Yeah, and it would have been fine if, like, Tommy Wiseau started to drag, and then you could be like, then if he did the push-off, then that would be understandable.
Yeah. But not this immediately, no, my microphone. I'm actually really surprised I was only number 4 and that this year was so bad that there were worse movies on the list. And it was on your list,
I'm
too.
still so mad.
The Wonder Model.
And people were talking about this movie being nominated for an Oscar. Are you serious?
For what? For its brilliant special effects that were done in MS Paint?
or its story that is literally just a copy and paste of Captain America, the first Avenger. Oh, wait, let's set it in World War I. Yeah, let's set it in World War I so that it doesn't feel too much like it.
With a lot more cock teasing. There is no reason to have Wonder Woman say, oh, I've read this 6-volume encyclopedia on how to have amazing, mind-blowing sex. But I'm a virgin because I'm no homo.
Well, it's because Zack Snyder wrote it. Like,
exactly, it's bullshit. I mean, a big part of my problem is I don't like contemporary Wonder Woman comics. I like the very original 1940s comics, actually. But, I mean, I like a lot of the other comics. I even like the 70s comics that everybody hates. But we had a much better movie. The animated Wonder Woman movie is awesome. And this doesn't compare. Even in visual effects, it doesn't even compare in terms of just sheer believability. But Wonder Woman's character essentially doesn't exist. Gal Gadot does an awful job. Yes, she has a very pretty smile. We can all, as a human species, agree that her smile is very pretty. She cannot act her way out of a paper bag. She did no work for this role. I see so much stuff about, she was an Israeli military combat instructor. She was in the Israeli army for 2 years because it was mandatory, and she spent most of that time modeling and running for Miss Israel.
Yeah, no, seriously.
She's not
go
serious.
And look up a picture of her in the military, and you will see her posing.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, well, she was a dancer. I've seen her dancing. In quotation marks, it's not dancing.
What, you mean the couple moments on set and that one video that's online? Show me another video.
Well, it's also not really dancing. It's more just like slightly swaying a little bit. She can't sing, obviously, which is fine because Wonder Woman doesn't have to sing, but she can't emote very well. She has no range in her ability to act whatsoever, except for maybe she has a slight bit of volume control. But going back to physicality, I've seen her rock climbing. It's amateur. It's low-grade stuff. It's not impressive. I could do that. I've seen her weight lifting, mostly with 2-pound weights. It's nothing. Daisy Ridley would knock her butt down. I've seen her do her stage combat, and it's pathetic. I was doing better stage combat when I was 11 years old as an amateur. This is sad. She did no work and got paid millions of dollars for it with all these accolades, and it's worthless. And what pisses me off the most is I've also seen the workouts of all the other Amazons for Wonder Woman. You know, everyone essentially in the background, not even like Robin Wright, but like everyone else. You literally could have stood in a room with them, blindfolded, pointed in a random direction, and come out with a woman who was more beautiful, could act at least as well, because Gal Gadot can't act, and was more able to do the work. You literally could have picked anyone else. Like, that's what pisses me off, is clearly there are plenty of women who can do it, because you hired them for your movie. What are you doing? But all that aside, it was ingenuous to the spirit of Wonder Woman, because you didn't include not only anything feminist in your film, because she can't actually have a community of women when she leaves Themyscira. She can't actually speak to another woman like they're a human being, like the way she treats Etta Candy like her personal servant. Fuck you. She can't do the action at all, and the action was not very interesting. The editing is horrible. The effects are garbage. Ares, everyone agrees, doesn't make any sense, and it's a horrible ending. Her whole love, the truth is what you make of it. People have pointed out, oh, Hitler could have used that slogan to start World War II. Thanks. It's also the first time that Wonder Woman's ever worn a skirt, I think, which is kind of funny. Because even in the original comics, she's actually wearing skirts until they just sort of morph into shorts. She's just this sort of like sexual cock-tease plaything in the movie, which annoys the shit out of me. She doesn't stand for good for the sake of doing good, because she doesn't connect to anybody. She doesn't actually connect to any sort of social issues or to anyone other than the dude that she fucks. And then, when that dude dies, she goes into hiding for years on end, missing all of the horrible atrocities all over the world for decades, because, oh, boo-hoo, this guy I knew for 2 seconds died one time. Oh, no.
Alright, to be fair, that's more of a Justice League problem than this problem.
No, we already knew that, even by the end of Wonder Woman. Because a lot of people were like, so wait a minute, in Justice League, are we going to see, like, oh, no, she secretly was doing all this stuff, just on the down low? No, she wasn't. She wasn't doing anything. She is a horrible hero and a terrible role model. She is not a good lead. And I want to make this point crystal fucking clear. As a character, she is equally as bad as Batman and Superman in the DCEU. They have done everything to her that they have done to every other character. But with her, it's progress because she's a woman. That's bullshit.
Yeah, and it's like all this stuff about like, oh, well, you should nominate this movie. Why? Oh, Patty Jenkins should get on the cover of Time magazine. You know, the same...
She didn't write it. She didn't cast it. She was brought in at the last second because she's the only Oscar darling who was willing to sign on to the project, because they essentially just went down the list of, who should be the director? Let's check every female nominated director for the Oscars and see which one of them will take it.
All right. Will Catherine Bigelow take it? No. Will Jane Campion take it? No. Who else do we have? Who else has been nominated? Oh, wait, she wasn't nominated for something, but like we had an actress nominated for that. Oh yeah, that monster movie was pretty good. Patty Jenkins, who hasn't directed a movie in almost 15 years.
And also clearly did not do a lot of directing on this movie.
And that being said, Monster is brilliant.
Monster is brilliant. But this was not Monster. This was a pile of garbage.
Yeah, and it frustrates me that so many people are like claiming like this movie, like what about this movie other than the fact that it stars a woman? Like seriously, what about this movie other than that fact?
This movie that pisses me off is that this is the embodiment of self-empowerment, as in empowering Wonder Woman.
And that's not Wonder Woman.
No, that's not Wonder Woman. She's supposed to be a symbol of acceptance regardless of everything, which is why you picked a pro-genocide Israeli soldier to star as her. That's great. She doesn't care that Palestinians get killed. Great. Awesome. Hire her to be Wonder Woman. It's unacceptable. But okay, we're America. We don't give a shit what happens across the sea. It doesn't matter. At least like pick somebody who can do the fucking work. And also the other reason why this is on my list is because this is the worst script of any DCEU movie. None of it makes sense. It's the worst dialogue and the worst plot I've ever fucking heard in a DCEU movie.
And fucking Ares is like the worst villain in comic book movies that I've seen.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I haven't seen Fan Four Stick.
This also does not need a nomination for costumes.
No.
No, the costumes are ugly and horrible. And even the Amazon women who were in the movie said that the super offensive revealing costumes in Justice League were a lot more comfortable for them to wear. Which made sense. And I don't understand why those were revealing. The only thing they were revealing were their abs and their biceps. Awesome. But even in terms of like, oh, well, women need a good female role model that they can look up to. Little girls need somebody that they can dress up as for Halloween. Guess what? We have so many better options than fucking Wonder Model. You know, fucking Barbie in this movie that even just from this year. Pick Ray. She's a Mary Sue, but guess what? Daisy Ridley does put in the work, and Ray has a lot more to admire than Wonder Woman does. Pick X-23. Pick Jyn Erso. Pick,
Katniss Everdeen.
Pick Katniss Everdeen. Pick either one of the Wonder Women. Hint, hint. Pick the girl from Okja. Pick Tanya Harding. Why not? I mean, maybe that's not great for little girls, I guess.
I mean, most of those movies that you're talking about are movies that are rated R.
But let's be fair, they're not really talking about little girls.
No.
Wonder Model is a PG-13 movie. Even still. But even if you do
I mean, like, how many movies come out?
But Wonder Woman is a great female role model. Sure, show them the animated film. Show them the comics. That's great. Show them some of the TV shows that she's in. I mean, the animated ones. I'm not talking about the Linda Carter one. That's great. Do any of those things.
Yeah,
we're not running short on female role models for grown-up women or for little girls. We got plenty. Little girls, you can have Mulan or Moana. Adults, You can have Ripley or Furiosa. Oh, little girls can have Furiosa too. Furiosa is way more of a badass. You can literally have any given woman in any Mad Max movie. But Fury Road, I think, had about 8 great female role models to pick from. Do that. Even in this movie, pick Robin Wright. Fine.
Robin Wright was awesome.
She was awesome. Make her Wonder model. Okay.
It's one of those things where, like, I get so frustrated, you know, especially with, like, all the praise that the movie's got, because it's like, you guys haven't even seen the good Wonder Woman movie yet, because it probably won't come out for a long time because everybody's obsessed with Gal Gadot.
But, okay, first of all, this is not the first comic book adaptation directed by a woman starring a woman. That goes to Tank Girl. I'm not saying that movie was good, but that movie was a hell of a lot better than Wonder Model. And those might be fighting words, but I will stand on my hill and die defending that one. I really will. But also, again, Tank Girl comics. Pick that. That's great. Hell, even pick Proud Mary. That came out recently. That's a great female role model, even for little kids. Do that one if you just want, like, an awesome woman kicking butt and doing good for the sake of doing good. There you go.
That's another R-rated movie.
You could show that to a kid and they would be fine. I actually don't understand why that's rated R. But there's no blood, there's no sex, there's almost no swearing.
Yeah.
You could show that to any kid and it would be fine. So, I mean, I literally could go on all day, but I'm going to stop myself there. My number 3 was Ghost in the Shell, as discussed, and Death Note, as discussed. My honorable mentions were The Book of Henry, and also I have to give a shout out to The Post for being the worst Best Picture nominee this year. And again, just missing the point of having a good female role model. Why was it centered around Kay, who did nothing but throw dinner parties all movie? You could have made it about that one investigative journalist who was funny, she was interesting, she had to work her way up because as a woman, she was being discriminated against and, oh, you can do lifestyle columns, and she fought to get the big job, to do the investigative work on this big breaking thing. Why didn't you make her the big feminist hero of your movie? Oh, because she couldn't be played by Meryl Streep. I'm sorry. But also, shout out to The Post for being a piece of liberal pro-corporate media propaganda, because that movie was about nothing but, oh, the Washington Post is actually good, you guys. See, look at this cool thing we did, you know, a few decades ago. Well, we're the good guys. And democracy dies in darkness.
And let's be honest, the whole movie is really a thinly veiled movie about, like, oh, Trump calls the media fake news. We're going to parallel
fake news, you guys.
Well, we're going to parallel this with a badly pantomiming Richard Nixon and...
Oh my god, that was so bad. Yeah. That was so awful. I can't believe that scene is part of an Oscar-nominated film.
Oh my god, that's like so seriously, if you haven't seen it yet, and you're planning on watching it, just pay attention to the Richard Nixon scenes and, like, just
you don't even have to pay attention. You'll see it. It's really painfully obvious.
Well, yeah, and also another issue with the film is the fact that you never had a chance to read the articles. Now, my eyes moved pretty fast, and, like, you saw the articles for, like, a split second, and it was like, oh, but that's not important. You know, this guy who risked his life to leak these documents, oh yeah, he's not important.
He's not important to the story.
You know,
the actual Pentagon Papers are not very important to the story at all. It's really not important, and that's a big problem. So, for my number 1 worst movie of 2017...
This is my number 2.
A Ghost Story is, out of any movie I think I've ever seen in my life, the least deserving of existing.
And this was on a ton of top 10 lists. I was like, oh, I gotta watch A Ghost Story because, you know, it was recommended to me by a friend, and, like, it's on a whole bunch of top 10 lists. It certainly can't be a bad movie. And also, I really liked Casey Affleck last year.
In Manchester by the Sea, yeah.
Yeah, he was great. So, you know,
he has a history from 6 years ago of being a complete dickbag and to a point of, like, being a illegal dickbag. Like, I'm not trying to soften the blow here, but we do have to admit that really shitty people can be good at what they do.
Yeah, and Rooney Mara has done some great performances, so, I wasn't expecting the movie to be this.
It's an hour and a half of nothing. It's literally an hour and a half of nothing. And it's actually a movie that is made significantly worse, not only by looking at the director interviews. Just going to the IMDb page made the movie worse for me. And I've never had that experience before. But this movie, if you haven't seen it, Casey Affleck wears a sheet over his head most of the time and stands in a corner while nothing happens for an hour and a half. That might sound hyperbolic even to people who have seen it, but that really is most of what the movie is. It's pathetic.
And people who hate Tree of Life have the audacity to tell me this is a good movie.
Oh, dear God. At least Tree of Life is better to look at. It's at least a more visually beautiful movie, if nothing else. This movie, it's all done in like a square aspect ratio, which drove me crazy. And the director said, oh, it's to make you feel claustrophobic, but all it made me feel was like, wow, you really like this pseudo-nostalgia from It Follows. Okay.
Well, I was going to say the Grand Budapest Hotel because, like, it had the same aspect ratio thing.
But at least the Grand Budapest Hotel is, again, interesting to look at. It doesn't look like gray mush. The lighting is awful, and like, or maybe it's the color grading, but it's just ugly to look at. But the story is supposedly, in very loose terms, supposed to talk about the idea of being very attached to a specific location. And it came from the director having an argument with his wife because his wife wanted to move out of their place in Dallas and he didn't want to. So he recorded their argument and made a script out of it, which is an awful idea. I don't know why anybody told him he should do that or greenlit the script, but there you go. But the problem is that there's nothing specific in this movie. Casey Affleck does some work at home as a musician, kind of. And that is the only scrap of detail in the entire movie. He has no personality besides that. Rooney Mara has nothing going in her life besides that. Their relationship is so bland. Oh, Rooney Mara says something and Casey Affleck isn't paying attention. That's one scene they have together. They hear a noise and they go back to bed and they snuggle and kiss for an uncomfortably long amount of time. It's not really interesting, but that happens. That's another scene they have together. And then I think they have one more scene together where they're talking to each other. And then there's a scene where she's listening to his piece of fucking garbage song that sounds like ass and the entire audience is subject. I mean, it's worse than what you hear on the radio now. It's really terrible. And it's because Kesha touched it, I swear to God. Because she did, actually. But
yeah, and she's in the movie for like a split second.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to diss on Praying, but like Kesha does have a history of making garbage music, and she had to pop in and puke all over this movie. Great. That's all they have together. There's nothing specific about that. There's nothing specific about the time he's spent in this location. And he's a ghost in this one spot, looking into the future and looking to the past. And nothing specific is happening.
And trying to get a note that was put into the wall.
That says nothing and means nothing to anybody who made the movie. This is the worst thing. The whole movie revolves around him as a ghost, trying to find this note that his girlfriend, who he may or may not have actually cared about at any point. I can't tell if that was supposed to be the point, that they didn't actually love each other, or if they were supposed to love each other and it was just poorly done. But she hides a note in the wall, and the whole movie is he wants to know what the fuck the note says. And at the end of the movie, he sees it and we don't. And it's a mystery. Okay. Well, you didn't give us anything to go on for that mystery to be mysterious enough to be intriguing. It just pisses you off. The director doesn't know what that note says. Rooney Mara wrote something on a note that was personal between her and Casey Affleck that she promptly forgot. Casey Affleck couldn't read it. No one knows what that note says or what it's supposed to mean. And he has the audacity to be like, oh, well, in Pulp Fiction, you don't know what's in the suitcase, and that's what makes it interesting. But if you don't have the suitcase in the movie, Pulp Fiction is still a great movie. There's shit happening. There are people in it. action happens. Things are exciting. People curse and have shotguns and overdose on cocaine and have needles in their chest. It's, at the very least, whether you like it or not, things happen.
Yeah.
It's not, Uma Thurman sitting on the floor literally eating an entire pumpkin pie. Well, John Travolta stands in the corner with a sheet over his head for 6 minutes as a good bit of acting, as the director puts it. Rooney Mara had a good bit of acting in that pie eating scene.
Oh, and it managed to be worse than the scene in Under the Skin.
The whole movie was significantly worse than Under the Skin, but the movie doesn't say or do anything, and people are like, oh, well, it's trying to talk about, like, what is the meaning of life? Is there a meaning of life? Let's look at the... But I want to know, how is it doing that? How is it doing that?
I think people are looking at nothing and seeing something. It's kind of like the movie Being There, but for the audience.
Yes, exactly.
So
yes.
I after hearing us break down this movie, I seriously think that you should watch Being There, because
Being There is actually a great movie. It's I hate to say this because I hate Forrest Gump, but it is the good Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
If it's supposed to be about, a movie about an idiot who somehow manages to get by and do well in society,
no,
and the similarities end there, but yeah, the movie is the idiot, and we're the rest of society who somehow look at it and they're like, clearly it's genius. Because we can't understand it. No, it's just nothing. And by the way, about the IMDb thing, there are some movies where, like, the names mean nothing. Like in Mother, it's like Mother and Man, or sometimes you'll have, man and woman, or Adam and Eve, or something.
Or yeah, like in The Road, it's just man and boy.
Man and boy, exactly. But this is so much worse than that. Casey Affleck's ghost's name is C for Casey Affleck, and Rooney Mara's character is named M for Rooney Mara. You literally didn't even bother to rename them. You just shortened it down to an initial so, like, somehow it would be more intriguing or something. And you thought your audience would be so dumb that you actually had to put subtitles under a wave. Hi! This is how you say hi in ghost language, because the ghosts can communicate telepathically through the houses across the way.
I told somebody at work about the movie, and I said, like, oh, there's this movie and there's this ghost standing around, and yeah, most of the movie is ghosts standing around, and then the ghost sees another ghost, and then she was like, oh, does the other ghost have floral print on the sheet? And I was like, yes.
The movie is that obvious. Ghost Story is not just the worst movie this year for me. This is one of the worst movies I've seen in a very long time. And at least bad movies have an idea or a vision, or like somebody involved had an idea for why they wanted it to be made. This movie literally does not deserve to exist. There is no earthly reason for this to have been made and distributed. It is wasting space.
And there are people who think this movie is brilliant. If you think this movie is brilliant, I'm not saying anything bad about you. I hate that notion. But what I would say is I really would like to hear why you think this movie is compelling.
I kind of want to take it a step further. Not why, like, what are the themes of it? I want you to explain to me how this is a good movie. What are the functional mechanics to this movie?
And so that's our list. Now, to go back, my number 10 was Call Me By Your Name. My number 9 was Justice League. My number 8 was The Book of Henry. My number 7 was Kong Skull Island. My number 6 was Wind River. My number 5 was Suburbicon. My number 4 was Wonder Woman. My number 3 was Ghost in the Shell. My number 2 was A Ghost Story. And my number 1 was Death Note.
And for me, my list in ascending order from least worst to most worst was Baby Driver, Bland Runner, Furzilla. I can't call him King Kong. King Kong's not in the movie. The Beguiled, Wind River, The Disaster Artist, Wonder Model, Ghost in the Shell, Death Note, and A Ghost Story.
So, what movies did you think were the worst of the year? Let us know in the comments below. I'm probably going to see a lot of Emoji Movie. Thanks for listening.
Oh, yeah, we do have to actually say we did not watch the Emoji Movie. Or Boss Baby, or
I saw the first 5 minutes of Boss Baby.
Yeah, we saw the first 5 minutes of Boss Baby and clearly do not need to see any more.
Yeah, Oscar-nominated Boss Baby.
Oh, God. The animated section depresses me this year.
Because fuck Lego Batman.
Right. Hashtag Oscars or Razzies. Thanks for listening.